Senator Lindsey Graham has publicly called for the assassination of Vladimir Putin, and for this, I believe he should resign immediately. It's wishful thinking he won't do it. This man is absolutely awful. I remember not that long ago, he was seen complaining about the Democrats and all that, but then he goes down and he's fist bumping Kamala because this guy is duplicitous. He is the epitome of swamp creature, and him, along with Adam Kinzinger, I believe, are contributing to the likelihood, I'll put it that way, that we do enter a nuclear World War III. He's called for the assassination of Vladimir Putin. Well, resign now began trending on Twitter. And the strange thing is the factions who are in support of what Lindsey Graham has said versus who opposes it. Because there are many leftists who support what he says, and there are many conservatives who are supporting what he says, and they're all wrong. But perhaps it's more of an authoritarian versus libertarian thing. Let me show you what he said, but let me just stress this point as we get started. When a senator, one of the most powerful politicians in the country, I know maybe it's silly to say, but Lindsey Graham is prominent within the Republican Party and in American politics. When he calls for the assassination of a nuclear powers president, what do you think they're going to be saying in Russia? They're now going to be coming out and saying the American people are advocating for calling on people to kill our president. Could you imagine if someone said that about Biden in Russia? What the media would be doing? This guy's a lunatic. And he prescripted this because he appeared on Fox News giving the exact same statement. Senator Lindsey Graham directly called for the assassination of Russian President Vladimir Putin twice on Thursday, both on Twitter and during an appearance on Fox News. So many people were shocked by his statements that resign now trended on Twitter in response. He tweeted, "Is there a Brutus in Russia? Is there a more successful Colonel Stauffenberg in the Russian military?" What a pathetic statement. A more successful Colonel Stauffenberg, sure. The only way this ends is for somebody in Russia to take this guy out. You would be doing your country and the world a great service. The only people who can fix this are the Russian people. Easy to say, hard to do. Unless you want to live in darkness for the rest of your life, be isolated from the rest of the world in abject poverty, and live in darkness, you need to step up to the plate. Lindsey Graham is a disgusting piece of trash who should resign now. Because not only is he calling for the assassination of a world leader which could result in serious military consequences, this is destroying any chance at diplomacy. Mind you, Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine was very damaging diplomacy. That I understand. Putin is absolutely in the wrong. But this ain't helping. The second tweet from Lindsey Graham where he says, unless you want to live in darkness, he's trying to emotionally manipulate people. He's trying to target Russian citizens to incite them to violence. Donald Trump gets criticized for saber rattling on Twitter. The establishment says he's going to start a war because he's like, I will not tolerate. They say it's inciting violence. Lindsey Graham can advocate for, call people to action, directly telling them to kill the Russian president. I think Vladimir Putin's kind of a bad guy. And kind of a bad guy, well, it's maybe an understatement. He's a bad guy. He is a bad dude. He was losing. The EU and the West were gaining more influence, as can be expected. And Vladimir Putin decided he was going to go in with military force. Now, look, you want to have an argument about the eastern regions of Ukraine, Donbass? You want to have an argument about regime change in 2014? Certainly think there's arguments about what the U.S. is doing and what's wrong. Vladimir Putin wants to invade through Belarus, stage nuclear weapons in Belarusian territory, have Belarus actually aid and assist an invasion from the north into the capital, Kiev, and start actually trying to seize and take over cities to the west. You know, man, Vladimir Putin, bad dude. But you know how we resolve these things? We don't do it by advocating for, I don't know, killing the president. We don't do it by pushing other nations towards World War III. And it's not just Lindsey Graham, it's Adam Kinzinger as well, who has called for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Yeah, calling for a no-fly zone is essentially a declaration of war. Because when you say that, what you are saying is, we intend to fire upon you. It's not a formal declaration of war. but it's a weasel word kind of declaration of war. It is the United States has decided we will control the airspace. We will use it as we see fit. And if you enter it, we will shoot you down. That's a threat of direct use of force in a foreign nation against a nuclear power. Graham made nearly identical comments during his appearance on Fox News. Yeah, and they should absolutely be slamming him. Fox host Sean Hannity, who has also been openly calling for escalation with Russia, brought up a law forbidding U.S. government employees from engaging in political assassination and asked if it was time to revisit the rule. I also have never been a big fan of Sean Hannity. Graham faced swift backlash on social media with "Resign Now, Lindsey Graham, John McCain," and several other related phrases trending throughout the evening. Oh, Paul Dano, trending as well. Paul Dano trending almost as much as "Resign Now" because the Batman came out and he plays the Riddler. The calls for his resignation came from all over the political spectrum, as people demanded that he was looking to push us into a third world war. Jack Posobiec. This was during Timcast IRL as we were wrapping the show up. Somebody super chatted us. Jack also saw the tweet, and Jack tweeted during the show, "Resign now." And then I followed suit, did the exact same thing. Tim Young says "Resign Now" is trending because Lindsey Graham got a couple of Cosmos in him at happy hour and decided to start threatening world leaders. Matt Gates says, "When has Senator Graham encouraging regime change ever ended badly?" Bravo, Matt Gates. Excellent tweet. Chris Hayes says, "Honestly gobsmacked at how reckless that Lindsey Graham tweet is." This is the fascinating thing. Chris Hayes in agreement with Jack Posobiec? Why, hell must be freezing over. We have the tweet here, but let me show you my tweet. I tweeted "Resign." That's it. And people said, "Explain yourself, Tim." Explain myself. Resign. Lindsey Graham went on national television and advocated for the assassination of a world leader and called on people in the country to try and kill their own president. You want to talk about destabilizing the planet and escalating to World War III? How about that? And the only way we save face when we're trying to diplomatically end conflict and prevent nuclear war would be for someone like Lindsey Graham to resign. But I will express, I understand. It ain't going to happen. Look at this first response. Burgess Boston says, "Tim Pool is definitely writing fan fiction about him meeting Vladimir Putin." There are a bunch of people. Some people are agreeing with me. But there are a bunch of people who are saying that I'm supporting Putin or something like that. No, I'm just not a fan of World War III, which apparently is underway. Man, I don't like to jam too much into too much into one segment, but there's just so much going on here. Politico reports, can a wider war be prevented? And they go on to mention. Let me do a search here for Kinzinger. Biden's first test is the no-fly zone, writes Politico. The unified position to a no-fly zone, unified opposition to a no-fly zone, World War III. Russia hawk, Marco Rubio recently called it, has started to crack. Adam Kinzinger, every liberal's favorite Republican, has loudly called for Biden to defend the skies from above from Russian planes. "I fear if this continues, we will have to intervene in a bigger way," he said Thursday night, after a day of heightened Russian attacks on civilian areas. Roger Wicker, Republican, is also on board, as are some big-name Democratic policymakers from the Obama years, such as Evelyn Farkas, the top official for Ukraine in the Obama Pentagon. Zelensky reiterated his call for a no-fly zone. "How long do you need? How many arms and legs and heads should be severed so that you understand?" he said at a press conference. "If you don't have the strength to provide a no-fly zone, then give me the planes. Would that not be fair?" The planes? You know what, man? To enforce a no-fly zone, absolutely planes. But we're talking about ground artillery. We're talking about surface-to-air missiles. We're talking about shooting down Russian aircraft. Russia's invasion is wrong. They're in the wrong first. Do we respond by escalating into a third world war? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is absolutely no. And it's a tough position. I don't want to see Ukrainians die. I like Ukraine. I think it's an amazing country. I'm not a fan of Russia, Vladimir Putin, invading into Ukraine. I think he's wrong. I think for all the points that are made about Donbass and the separatists and all that, Vladimir Putin should not be invading and trying to split the country in half or whatever he's trying to do. So it sucks. But you have to show patience, resolve, and restraint. We may be powerful here in the West, but I assure you, your children will learn of this war with their own eyes. You want to know fly zone? You want to see Russia escalate and push into Europe? These NATO countries, mark my words, to quote one of my favorite movies, as I often do, this war will not be fought in some faraway land. It will be at your doorstep. Your children will learn of it with their own eyes. In fact, for those in the United States, that we may be spared from such a conflict, many of your children will be the ones deployed to go and fight in this war. And if they do survive it, perhaps one day you will come home and you will find your child has taken their own life after suffering trauma from experiencing a war of this magnitude. I think, I look at everything anyone could have learned from Iraq and Afghanistan, the civilian casualties, the failed regime change, and the trauma to our own soldiers, and for what? U.S. conquest in the Middle East. Now, don't get me wrong. As much as we talk about how the media lied about WMDs, there were some chemicals there for sure. And we've certainly had people on the show who have discussed actually being victims of certain chemicals in Iraq and Afghanistan. In Iraq. But that doesn't change. That doesn't change much. The U.S. sending our troops overseas, and the argument is we fight them over there, so we don't got to fight them over here. We're not going to fight them over here. What does this mean? Is Iraq gonna send U-boats to our shores? No, we have security problems. Al-Qaeda certainly infiltrated and targeted us, but these are real risks that we face, and we need to figure out how to be secure in this country while making sure we balance our freedoms. Perhaps we need to navigate that, but it's a difficult question. I am very much in favor of freedom. I am very much in favor of taking these risks, and I would argue the risks are acceptable for freedom, and if we weren't engaged in regime change in the Middle East, we probably would not be as at risk. If we were not the world police with military bases all over the planet, with the gall to then criticize Russia, as far as I know, Russia, their military, yeah, they've got Syria, they've got Tartus, Crimea. Certainly Russia has troops stationed outside of their own country. But the U.S., man, troops in Europe and Japan and South Korea, on surrounding Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not here to whataboutism or any of that stupid. It's a stupid word. It's a manipulation, to be honest. But I'm not here to just be like, what Russia is doing is not that bad, or the U.S. is worse. The U.S. is bad. What Russia did right now is the moral wrong. But a no-fly zone to declare war on Russia, we've been through this before. And it's one of the reasons that Donald Trump got elected. During the 2015-2016 cycle, Hillary Clinton was calling for a no-fly zone in Syria. And our general said that would be a declaration of war on Russia. And I called that out too. Are you nuts? Russia just fires off some nukes from submarines or uses nuclear artillery. Who knows what they'll do? It's getting bad, man. Yesterday, we saw what may be one of the greatest bits of propaganda from the Ukrainian government. Axios reports Russian forces seize Europe's largest nuclear power station. All right, well, it's better than them shooting at it. But last night, this is what we led with, main story. There was a firefight, war breaking out at a nuclear power plant, leaving everybody rather worried. Now, the good news is this is a more advanced power plant than just Chernobyl. Chernobyl apparently was a test gone wrong, which caused an explosion. This nuclear plant, if it melts down, the core will just melt down into the earth, and that's it. It'll just keep melting. It's not going to blow up. So long as containment holds, you will not see radiation leaks. So this is people trying to scream that if this plant blows up, it'll wipe out Europe or something like that. And they're lying to you. Ukrainian officials said Friday They've extinguished a fire near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station in southeastern Ukraine that ignited during shelling by Russian forces, but confirmed that Russia's military has seized the plant. Energoatom, is that how you pronounce it? Ukraine's nuclear power operator said in a telegram statement that the administrative building and the checkpoint at Europe's largest nuclear power station are under occupiers' control. The plant staff continues to work on power units, ensuring the stable operation of nuclear facilities. Unfortunately, there are dead and wounded among the Ukrainian defenders of the station. The UN nuclear watchdog and U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm both said the plant and the Energy Secretary both said the plant was secure. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russian forces of nuclear terror, according to a translation by the Ukrainian embassy. Yeah, well, let's take a look at this one. Pedro Gonzalez says, the Ukrainian government, including Zelensky, lied about Russians critically damaging the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in a way that caused radiation levels to rise, which they used to justify getting U.S. and NATO involved. The Ukrainian government is actively trying to start World War III. Well, I'll pull that back a little bit and I'll say, I think the Ukrainian government is desperately trying to get the West to intervene to save their asses. However, lying to get NATO directly involved in a ground war in Ukraine, disgusting. No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen reported about the nuclear power plant. He says, elevated radiation levels are being detected around the nuclear power plant, a Ukrainian official tells the AP. Ukraine's prime minister is calling on NATO to close the skies over nuclear power plants. It is a question of the security of the world. But then we had this. U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm tweeted that the Zaporizhzhia plant's reactors were protected by robust containment structures and were being safely shut down. In an emotional speech in the middle of the night, Zelensky said he feared an explosion that would be the end for everyone, the end for Europe, the evacuation of Europe. Only urgent action by Europe can stop the Russian troops. Do not allow the death of Europe from a catastrophe at a nuclear power station. But most experts saw nothing to indicate an impending disaster. The International Atomic Energy Agency said the fire had not affected essential equipment and that Ukraine's nuclear regulator reported no change in radiation levels. The American Nuclear Society concurred, saying that the latest radiation levels remained within natural background levels. That's right. Trying to lie to force us into a war. I gotta say, man, war is a dirty game. Dirty business. I don't think Russia is so stupid, but I can tell you Russia is really bad at information warfare and getting out messaging. We're going to see more stories like this. We're going to hear about children being killed. We're going to hear about more Russian soldiers crying and saying they didn't know how evil they had actually been and it was all a misunderstanding. It's propaganda. And the funny thing is, take a look at who is advocating for the assassination of Putin. And remarkably, you can see like Ilhan Omar, for instance, slammed Lindsey Graham, Chris Hayes. Yet there are many establishment leftists criticizing me. You want to play games? Sure. I stand alongside Ilhan Omar and Chris Hayes in condemning what Lindsey Graham has said in his tweet. And Jack Posobiec. How about that? You know, I think if you want to find who the real grifters are, you want to know who the real grifters are, I'll tell you what. Take a look at who is defending Lindsey Graham's statements. I question them. People are saying, but he's right. No, he's not. Vladimir Putin isn't the end-all be-all of Russia. Either you're lying because you're pro-war or you're just ignorant. If someone were to, first of all, if someone were to even try to take the life of Vladimir Putin, you would have chaos erupting. The fact that Lindsey Graham said this can destabilize the region worse than it already is and make diplomacy impossible, considering it was already difficult in the first place because Russia's already invaded. But if someone in Russia actually goes after Putin, do you genuinely believe that Lavrov or someone else wouldn't step up and say, we will not stand for this? You've already got Lukashenko in Belarus, who's on board with Russia. What do you think China would do? It is a level of depravity and psychotic behavior and naivety. I just can't. It's just absolutely insane. Russia would say the U.S. called for, advocated for, or even aided and abetted the assassination of their president. There would be international outrage. Adam Kinzinger, the no-fly zones, man, they want war, and you know what I fear? I fear they're going to get it. And then, I mean, that's who they are. It's insane. These people, man, they don't care about human life. They don't. And so it's no surprise they'll try and smear me. It's no surprise like the Young Turks will come out and attack me. Why? Well, because I counter their propaganda. I'm not going to be manipulated by emotional cries but think of the children. Shut your mouth. I am thinking about the children, you morons. But they're lying to you. The reality is it's bad what Russia is doing. More war doesn't solve that. Let me tell y'all a story. It's a story I was told when I was very little. There was a party. It was a family story. And some guy, it was with his wife. Some other guy walked up and started hitting. Guy A is with his wife. Guy B starts hitting on Guy A's wife. Guy A tells him to back off and stop hitting on his wife. And so a fight breaks out, and Guy B punches Guy A. Guy A falls down and slams his head on a table and dies. Is that and that's escalation. Any fight you can avoid is a fight you've already won. Now, there are challenges, admittedly. Vladimir Putin, will he stop? He's already engaged in some kind of extreme act, and the challenge is, let's look at it this way. A man armed with a fully automatic select fire Kalashnikov, AK-47, breaks into a hospital and starts smashing things up and destroying things. And him and his buddies are trying to lock down and take out the security guards. The police arrive on scene. Typically, will the police just storm in and engage in a firefight? Not necessarily. Why? Because the concern is that entering could result in mass casualties. And while it's already bad, you have a hostage situation, you need to find a way to shut it down. Sometimes we would storm in knowing civilians and casualties could escalate. But let's play another game. The guy stormed into the hospital and he's armed with hostages. The only problem is he's also lined bombs around a bunch of other buildings. And so it's just like, man, how do you handle a situation like this? So I don't even know if the analogy is necessary because it's a rock and a hard place. Vladimir Putin's got nukes. He's moved in. He's pissed off. If the West gets involved, it goes from just having Ukraine be in trouble to the entirety of Europe. Ukraine is trying to push that case. World War III is already here. Only if NATO is forced into the fray. And it won't just... It's tough, man. Do you let Vladimir Putin do what he's doing? How do you stop him? This is one of the reasons why I think the concept of mutually assured destruction, albeit a concept and a doctrine, I don't think it'll play out the way people think it will. Because people don't want to escalate. I don't know, man. I don't have the answers. I don't know how you stop someone like Vladimir Putin. Sanctions, perhaps. But he's going to take what he wants. And if the U.S. intervenes, World War III. So what do you do? Do we accept that the world is just doomed? The great filter is inevitable? Or do we just say maybe Putin's going to win this one? I don't know, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.